So let's talk about one of the most confusing and frankly defining traits of narcissistic personality disorder. It's this tendency to treat every single relationship like a business deal, not a real human connection. We're going to dig into how even things that look like generosity are often just carefully calculated moves in a long game of control. Just think about that for a second. You know that feeling, right? When someone does you a favor or gives you a gift, but it doesn't feel free. It feels like it comes with all these invisible strings attached. Well, that feeling is exactly what we're getting into today. It's the core of this whole transactional mindset, the sense that you're not just getting a gift, you're signing an emotional contract you didn't even know existed. All right, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into the basic logic of the transaction itself. Then, we're going to look at two very distinct profiles, the strategic investor and the unilateral extractor. And that second one is especially insidious. After that, we'll unpack the manipulative tactics they use, and we'll wrap up with some real, concrete ways you can protect yourself. Okay, first up, the logic of the transaction. This is all about why real, authentic connection gets thrown out the window in favor of, well, a kind of emotional bookkeeping. So what are we really talking about here? In this context, a transactional relationship is one where every single interaction is seen as an exchange. Every little gesture, a compliment, a helping hand, a present, it all gets measured, recorded in a mental ledger, and then saved to be used later as emotional currency. This has nothing to do with genuine kindness. It's a calculated investment made to get what's called narcissistic supply, that constant stream of attention and validation they need to prop up their own fragile sense of self. And this is where you can really see the difference in black and white. On one hand, you have a healthy relationship. It's built on things like empathy and trust. The give and take is just natural. It flows. The goal is for both people to be happy. But then you look at the transactional relationship. The foundation is completely different. It's all about what's useful, who's in control, and what can be gained. Reciprocity isn't fluid. It is tracked down to the penny. And the end goal, it's not mutual happiness. It's getting admiration, submission, and validation for the narcissist. That's it. Okay, so let's look at our first profile to see how this actually plays out in the real world. This is what we call the strategic investor. This is when generosity is really just a weapon for control. Now, this is probably the version of the transactional relationship you're most familiar with. The gifts from this type of person are never just gifts. They always have a hidden motive. Maybe it's to show off how much money they have or how good they are. More often, it's about putting you in their emotional debt, making you feel like you owe them. This secures your loyalty, or it can even be used to correct your behavior. They'll also reward you when you do what they want, which is a classic form of intermittent reinforcement that keeps you hooked and always trying to please them. And there it is. That's the sound of the emotional bill coming due. This one question is the ultimate weapon in their arsenal. It's designed to make you feel instant guilt, to manipulate you into doing whatever they want. People who've been through this often say they feel like they're always in debt because every single nice thing that was ever done for them is kept on file, just waiting to be used against them. So what happens when the narcissist doesn't get their expected return on investment, whether that's praise or just simple obedience? Well, a very predictable and very destructive pattern kicks in. It usually starts with emotional withdrawal, the silent treatment. Then it moves into passive-aggressive comments. From there, it can escalate to full-blown gaslighting, with lines like, "You're just never satisfied, are you?" That can lead to more obvious forms of punishment. And eventually, they might just end the relationship altogether. But always, always with a story that makes them look like the good guy, the victim. Now, if you thought the strategic investor sounded bad, this next profile is, in many ways, even more destructive. Let's talk about the unilateral extractor. This is the ultimate one-way street. I mean, think about this. In this dynamic, the narcissist gives basically nothing, zero. The other person becomes the sole investor, pouring every ounce of their energy, their money, their time, their emotional labor into keeping the relationship afloat. And the craziest part? The narcissist doesn't see any of this as a gift. They don't appreciate it. They see it as their right. It's something they believe they are fundamentally entitled to. And this table really just lays out the sheer scale of what we're talking about. The victim's investment is total. Financially, it's everything from rent and bills to pet food. Domestically, it's all the cleaning, all the chores. Emotionally, it's a constant, draining output of validation and support that is never, ever reciprocated. And logistically, it's handling all the annoying life admin that the narcissist just can't be bothered with. The victim literally becomes a one-person life support system. So you might be wondering, how on earth can an imbalance that extreme actually last? How do they defend it? Well, that brings us to the core tactics of manipulation. When the victim finally works up the courage to question this completely one-sided arrangement, the narcissist pulls out a very specific defensive playbook. First, they guilt trip. They flip it right back on you. Oh, so you only do nice things because you expect something in return? Then they'll play the victim, coming up with a million excuses for why they can't help. If that doesn't shut you down, they'll just devalue everything you've done. It wasn't that hard. You're being dramatic. And the final move is pure gaslighting, completely rewriting history by saying, you offered. I never asked you for any of that. So what's really happening here psychologically? All of these tactics serve one purpose. They protect the narcissist's incredibly fragile ego. It prevents them from ever having to admit they depend on someone or that they owe them anything. This whole strategy just completely erases all of the victim's hard work, and worse, it reframes the victim as being the selfish one, the needy one, or the controlling one, just for asking for basic fairness. Okay, so we've been through the mechanics of it, but understanding this is the first step toward getting out. So now, for the most important part, how to protect yourself. This is all about taking back your power and your sense of self-worth. All right, let's get into some real actionable strategies. Number 1, and this is the big one, refuse to play the game. Do not accept the logic of emotional debt. A gift is a gift. It does not mean you owe someone your submission. Next, get really good at asking yourself what the true intention is behind someone's actions. Is this coming from a place of love, or is it a strategic move? Third, you have to establish clear, firm boundaries. And you know what? It's absolutely crucial to recognize that sometimes saying no to a gift is the ultimate act of self-care. Beyond that, work on strengthening your own independence, both emotionally and financially. That reduces anyone's leverage over you. And finally, the goal is to get out of the accounting business altogether. Stop keeping score and just focus on what feels real and authentic. So look, if you take only one single thing away from this whole discussion, please let it be this. The most important, most powerful first step you can ever take is simply learning to see this transactional logic for what it is. Identifying that emotional ledger is the beginning of getting your dignity and your freedom back. And that really leaves us with a bigger question, one we should all probably think about in our own lives. How can we consciously and actively build relationships that are based on real, genuine connection and not on some hidden subconscious calculation? It's definitely something to think about.